billions of light-years away from Earth, in an unknown twist of time and space. Scientist Dr. Elara Myles and her team embarked on a journey to encounter prehistoric civilizations. This was not just an exploration, but also an experiment that pushed the existential limits of humanity. As they entered the spiral of time, their ship, Celestia, served as a gateway to the prehistoric past. For this special mission, an international team was formed by the International Space Agency, gathering the best scientists and researchers from around the world. Dr. Myles was known for her work on time theories and quantum mechanics. Under her leadership, the team would travel back in time aboard Celestia to uncover the secrets of lost civilizations. The control room inside Celestia was equipped with dozens of monitors and complex computer systems. Each scientist on board was working at a station according to their expertise. The specially designed motors allowed them to travel not only through space, but also forward and backward in time. As the journey began, fluctuations in time started to appear around Celestia. The ship's energy shields protected it from the excessive pressures of the surrounding space-time fabric. At one of the critical stages of the mission, Dr. Myles addressed her team. This journey could give a new direction to human history. Every challenge we face will be a significant step for science. Exploring the past shapes our future. Their first target was to travel about 150 million years back to the age of dinosaurs. During this period, the Earth had a completely different ecosystem dominated by massive creatures. When Celestia's time engines were activated, the surrounding space-time began to contract, opening a tunnel into the depths of time. During the journey, the atmosphere inside the ship changed. The air was adjusted to increase oxygen levels to adapt to the periodic characteristics. Team members donned specially designed protective suits. These suits provided protection against possible atmospheric poisoning and regulated body temperature. As Celestia advanced through the time tunnel, Dr. Myles and her team had the opportunity to observe the flow of time. The ship's external cameras recorded the changing geographical and climatic conditions as they passed through different time periods. This data would provide valuable information for future research. Eventually, Celestia reached its destination. They landed at the edge of a vast forest in the middle of the age of dinosaurs. Dr. Myles and her team disembarked to explore their surroundings. The lush vegetation, towering trees, and strange animal sounds from afar captivated them. Meanwhile, the team's paleontologists observed various dinosaur species. Small dinosaurs wandering through the bushes, gigantic brachiosaurus drinking from the river, and flying pterosaurs showcased the diversity of life in this era. As Dr. Myles and her team explored this ancient world, they also planned to journey to other layers of time. Each time period held its own unique secrets and stories waiting to be discovered. However, these explorations also carried significant risks. Delving this deep into time could lead to unexpected consequences. While progressing through the spiral of time, the biggest surprise for Dr. Myles and her team was where time would take them and which prehistoric civilizations they would encounter. With each step, they were ready to face the unknown, in pursuit of information that would rewrite human history. As Celestia continued its journey through the spiral of time, the team decided their next destination would be an ancient civilization, Egypt around 3000 BC. Dr. Myles watched as her team adjusted the time engines, filled with hope that they could unlock the mysteries of ancient Egypt. This era was famous for the construction of pyramids, the rule of pharaohs, and the rich tales of ancient Egyptian mythology. Celestia landed in a fixed point in time, right in the midst of a pyramid construction site along the banks of the Nile River. The team carefully disembarked, marveling at the details of the people and structures around them during their first encounter with the ancient world. Workers at the construction site were carving and placing stone blocks. The team discussed how this construction technique and the tools used could illuminate modern archaeology. Dr. Myles and her team were directed toward the palace of a pharaoh. The palace was a massive structure adorned with gold and precious stones. Upon entering, they were greeted by corridors covered in colorful frescoes and hieroglyphs. Each hieroglyph told stories of the daily lives, beliefs, and views on the afterlife of the ancient Egyptian people. Soon, the team encountered the ruler of Egypt in the main hall of the palace. The pharaoh greeted his guests with great curiosity and invited them into the palace's private chambers. Dr. Myles carefully informed the pharaoh about time travel and Celestia's purpose. The pharaoh showed great interest in this information and offered to share the wisdom and achievements of his time. During this exchange, Dr. Myles and her team had the opportunity to learn about the advanced knowledge of ancient Egypt in fields such as mathematics, astronomy, and medicine. They also had a detailed look at the political and social structure of the pharaoh's reign. Each piece of information provided a new perspective on humanity's history taken from this time slice. Celestia's next destination was a previously undiscovered planet that hosted the ruins of a lost civilization. This planet was much older than known prehistoric periods and possibly held secrets that could entirely change human history. As Dr. Myles made the final adjustments on the ship's control panel, she waited eagerly for new adventures and discoveries. Sailing through the spiral of time, Celestia glided toward the unknown. Each time layer offered the possibility of encountering a civilization from prehistory in a different corner of the universe. Dr. Myles and her team's journey in search of knowledge was filled with information that could rewrite human history. However, these discoveries also posed significant risks. Delving this deep into time could lead to unexpected consequences. Celestia's next stop was set for Atlantis, considered one of the most mysterious civilizations in human history. This time, however, it would not just be a legend, but a real encounter. Navigating through the spiral of time to find the right frequency was quite challenging, as the traces of Atlantis existed only in mythology and prehistoric remnants. Dr. Myles knew that finding Atlantis would be revolutionary for both human history and the future. If they could truly reach Atlantis, they could answer all questions regarding the technological and cultural heritage of this civilization. Celestia's engines roared back to life. The fabric of time twisted once again as the crew plunged deeper into time in pursuit of Atlantis. The uncertainty of time travel created a wave of excitement among each member of the team. As they moved through the spiral of time, the images outside the windows became increasingly blurry. The ship floated in the unknown, lost among the undulating layers of time. Suddenly, the images began to clarify. Before Celestia loomed a massive city extending into the depths of the sea. This was Atlantis. The city was filled with crystal structures that shimmered beneath the water. Atlantis had much more advanced technology than they had expected. Celestia's sensors detected an incredible energy source deep within this lost civilization. The city was illuminated by large crystal energy generators that powered the entire Atlantis civilization. The city center of Atlantis looked like something out of a modern science fiction movie. Buildings were constructed around giant crystals, moving in harmony with the flow of water. The power of the crystal energy generators not only sustained life in the city, but also regulated the ecosystem of the surrounding ocean. As Dr. Myles approached Atlantis, she turned to her team. "This place is far more advanced than we thought," she said excitedly. "Unraveling the secrets of this civilization could change not only our past, but our future as well." However, entering Atlantis would not be easy. The energy shields surrounding the city protected it from all external threats. Atlantis itself was a scientific miracle, and this shield was the biggest obstacle to their exploration. Dr. Myles gathered her team to find a way to bypass the shield. Celestia scientists worked to analyze the dynamics of the crystal energy sources to find the weak points in the shield. Finally, with Dr. Carter's suggestion, they managed to decode the crystal energy frequencies and generated a signal that could harmonize with the vibrations of the shield, allowing them to enter the city. The ship's hatch opened, and Dr. Myles, along with her team, stepped into Atlantis. Despite being underwater, they could breathe thanks to a special air dome inside the city. The atmosphere was quite similar to Earth's, but peaceful ripples of water surrounded them. The Atlanteans quickly noticed their unexpected visitors. The city's advanced security systems were activated. A delegation of Atlanteans approached to greet the Celestia crew. One of the Atlantean leaders, a tall figure dressed in golden armor, walked toward Dr. Myles. The physical appearance of the Atlanteans closely resembled humans, but they had much more delicate and graceful features. With long white hair and sapphire blue eyes, this leader embodied the ancient wisdom and authority of Atlantis. His name was Helios, and after carefully examining the visitors, he spoke in a calm voice. "Visitors from beyond time, who are you and why are you here?" he asked. Dr. Myles knew that this encounter was critical. A wrong move could jeopardize their entire mission. After a moment's pause, she calmly replied, "We are scientists from human civilization. We have searched for traces of your civilization for centuries, but we could never determine whether Atlantis was a legend or a reality. Now we are here, and we wish to share knowledge with you." After listening carefully, Helios's face revealed a vague expression. "We decided to leave this world a long time ago. We never expected humanity to find us. But now that you are here, we must make a choice." The eyes of the Atlanteans indicated that they were a very peaceful civilization. Dr. Myles and her team thought they had a great opportunity to unveil the secrets of this civilization. However, Helios began to narrate not only their wisdom, but also the stories of the events that led to Atlantis' downfall. The destruction of Atlantis had begun when their technological superiority and power over crystal energy became uncontrollable. An anomaly occurred within the core of the crystals, causing an energy catastrophe in the depths of the city. To survive this disaster, the Atlanteans buried their city deep in the ocean and trapped it in a reality outside of time. According to Helios's narrative, this power posed a great threat to humanity. The crystal energy of Atlantis was powerful enough to bend the boundaries of time and space. If misused, it could threaten not only Atlantis, but the entire universe. For this reason, the Atlanteans had severed all ties with the outside world. Dr. Myles was influenced by Helios's words, but was also eager to develop a technology that could control this energy. The team engaged in an internal discussion about the potential dangers of transporting this energy to the modern world. Some argued that this knowledge could lead to significant progress for humanity, while others believed that this power was uncontrollable and that history would repeat itself. Working with the crystals of Atlantis posed a huge risk. Dr. Myles turned to Helios and asked if it was possible to share this wisdom with humanity. After pondering for a moment, Helios said, "Sharing your knowledge and exposing our technology could create a great danger. However, we want to see what you can do for humanity. We will test whether you have learned from the mistakes that led to our downfall." The Atlanteans provided the Celestia crew with the opportunity to unlock the secrets of the crystals. However, this was a dangerous process that would put them through a series of trials. In a reality where time and space were warped, a wrong move could lead to an irreversible end. The Celestia team was aware of this great challenge. However, if they could control Atlantis' crystal energy, they could usher in a new era for humanity. This massive energy source could shape not only the world, but also different corners of the universe. As Dr. Myles prepared to embark on this unknown journey, she took a deep breath with her team. Before them opened a door that would answer the greatest questions in history, but also contain great dangers. Facing the ancient wisdom and power of Atlantis would not only change their fate, but also the future of all humanity. Dr. Elara Myles and her team felt the weight of Helios's decision. The trials to control Atlantis' crystal energy included a series of dangerous tests that would challenge not only human intelligence, but also their will and moral values. These tests were designed to understand how technology could lead to disasters in the wrong hands. The mistakes that caused Atlantis' collapse could not be repeated. However, Elara and her team believed they could succeed despite the challenges of these trials. Properly using Atlantis' advanced technology could change the future of humanity. In the center of Atlantis, they entered a large, circular room to reach the crystal energy source. In the center of the room was a massive crystal column radiating beams of light in all directions, making one feel that time was bending within the space. It was not difficult to understand that time was not linear here, seconds turn into minutes, and minutes into hours. The energy of this crystal not only affected time, but also warped the fabric of space. Helios halted the team in front of the crystal column, saying, "Now, you will begin your first trial. You must resonate at a specific frequency to awaken the energy of this crystal. But be careful, an incorrect frequency could change not only time here, but also you in an irreversible way." Dr. Myles turned to her team. "Is everyone ready?" The tension among the team members was palpable, but they were all determined. They would do everything in their power to uncover the secrets of Atlantis. The first step was to analyze the vibration frequency of the crystal column. Dr. Malik, the team's physics expert, pulled out a special device from his pocket. This device could measure the frequencies emitted by the crystal and also intervene with those frequencies. The energy waves radiating around the crystal first vibrated the human body. Then, data began to stream onto the device's screen. "The frequency is not constant," Dr. Malik said in a worried tone. "It is constantly changing according to the flow of time here. If we make an incorrect intervention, all timelines could become entangled." Dr. Myles understood the consequences of making a mistake in this situation. However, they had no other options. "Okay, Malik," she said, "calculate sudden changes in the frequency and try find a range we can stabilize. If we cannot bring this energy under control, we could not only bring about the end of Atlantis, but possibly our own existence as well." As Dr. Malik continued his work, a strange unease began to grow in the room. The bending of time started to affect not only the surroundings, but also the perceptions of the people. For a brief moment, Elara felt that she was not with her team. For a few seconds, she felt like she was in another time period, in another world. Though this sensation appeared to be a short-lived illusion, it had a significant impact. Manipulating time was affecting their consciousness and gradually pulling them back into the past. Dr. Myles blinked to regain her focus. The others were experiencing similar discomfort. They were having brief jumps between layers of time. They felt the flow of time, speeding toward the past or freezing completely at times. Time was shaping under the control of this crystal, testing the limits of human consciousness. Eventually, Dr. Malik seemed to have found a solution. "Okay," he said excitedly. "I found an average value for the frequencies. We may be able to stabilize the resonance of the crystal right now, but this is just a temporary solution. We can connect to the crystal energy, but if we hold this connection for too long, the bending of time could completely take control of us." Dr. Myles hesitated for a moment, but there were no other options. "Let's begin," she said firmly. "Malik, set the frequency and stimulate the crystal." Malik sent a signal towards the crystal with his device. Suddenly, the energy waves in the room intensified. The crystal began to glow, and the rings of light swirling around the column accelerated. Time seemed to freeze. However, this moment resulted in something different than the team had expected. As the crystal was stimulated, the flow of energy around it grew even stronger. The spiral of time became even more complex, and at that moment, the Celestia team was suddenly pulled into the depths of a prehistoric age. When they opened their eyes, they found themselves in a completely different world. This world was an age much older and more primitive than Atlantis. A hot climate, dense vegetation, and giant creatures soaring in the sky. This was a time when civilization had not yet developed. The team had suddenly been thrust into a prehistoric age, perhaps millions of years back in time. The time crystal had brought them to an unexpected place, right in the middle of another era. This is a disaster," Dr. Malik shouted. "The crystal has gone out of control. We don't even know where we are right now." Dr. Myles looked around. Massive plants and primitive creatures wandered around them. This world bore no trace of human civilization. It was as if they had been pulled deep into the depths of time to a pre-civilizational universe. The crystal energy not only threatened Atlantis, but had warped the entire timeline, pulling them into this primitive era. Yet, even amid this disaster, a thought sparked in Dr. Myles's mind. Perhaps in this age, they could find more information about the origins of human history. Maybe they could learn more about prehistoric creatures and civilizations. However, the most pressing matter right now was how to escape from here. Without understanding how the crystal energy had pulled them into this time, it would be impossible to return. The team sprang into action. They began exploring the primitive world and trying to understand the dangers around them. The primitive life of this period was filled with gigantic creatures, and every step the team members took required caution. Towering reptiles and bird-like creatures roaming around reminded them that they were not welcome here. Dr. Myles and her team started searching for ways to return to the correct time using the time crystal again. However, the time crystal was unstable in this chaotic world. To reactivate it, they needed to find the right frequency, survive in this wild nature, and get back before they became trapped in the depths of the past. The challenges they faced at every turn tested their physical and mental limits. Primitive creatures, natural disasters, and unknown forces constantly threatened them. Yet Elara and her team realized they were confronting an unknown prehistoric period of humanity. This arduous process was not just a struggle for survival, but also an opportunity to uncover the truths hidden in the depths of the past. Would they be able to reactivate the time crystal and return? Or would they be lost in this prehistoric age, trapped in a time period unknown to humanity forever? As Elara Myles searched for the answers to these questions with her team, she was aware that unknown adventures awaited them in the twisted fabric of time. Dr. Elara Myles and her team began to understand with every step they took in this prehistoric world how variable and dangerous time could be. The atmosphere of the primitive world placed a heavy burden on them, both physically and mentally. Without unraveling how the time crystal had brought them here, their chances of returning were slim. As they moved through the dense vegetation, the team had to be vigilant against both the traps of time and the natural disasters. The scientific team of Celestia knew that surviving for even a short period in this world would be challenging for them due to their heavy reliance on technology. Their equipment was quite limited according to the conditions of the primitive world. However, Dr. Myles, without losing her resolve, rallied her team and said they needed to find a way out of this disaster. The team had to find the right frequency and energy source to reactivate the time crystal, but the world around them offered a very challenging environment for their efforts. Massive plants and unknown primitive creatures posed constant threats to the team's safety. Furthermore, Dr. Myles had a deeper thought in her mind. Did this world host the remnants of a civilization that existed long before human history? After some time, the team stumbled upon traces of a strange structure. It was a massive complex made of stone columns, seemingly built according to a specific architectural plan, but not suited for primitive world conditions. These ruins bore traces of an unknown civilization, and Dr. Myles thought that what they might discover here could be directly connected to the crystal energy. As they moved toward the center of the structure, they found a passageway made up of massive stone doors. Strange symbols and patterns were engraved on the door. Dr. Malik immediately prepared his equipment to analyze these symbols. The patterns did not correspond to any known language or writing system. However, somehow, these symbols seemed to be giving them a warning. This structure was not just an ordinary passage, but a mechanism that governed time itself. Dr. Myles believed that unraveling the secret behind the door was crucial to regaining control over the time crystal. This may be a kind of time temple, she said. If we can solve the mechanisms inside the structure, we might be able to move further or backward in time with the crystal energy. Every member of the team felt the fear that came with stepping into a great unknown, yet Dr. Myles's determination encouraged them. They had no option but to move deeper into the temple as they were trapped in the spiral of time. The inside was filled with massive stone columns, each decorated with different patterns representing the symbols of time. This temple of time was also an engineering marvel. The columns and stone blocks were arranged in a way that they could function like gears in a massive clock. Dr. Malik made a discovery while examining the symbols on the columns. These patterns indicate a kind of time loop. It seems this mechanism can reverse or accelerate time. If we find the right combination, we can regain control of the crystal. This information excited the team. However, there was a problem. The control of time was not in their hands, and if the mechanism was activated incorrectly, it could send them deep into another era or completely destroy them. Dr. Myles thought for a moment and made the final decision. "We have to try this," she said. "We have no other choice." Dr. Malik and the other scientists carefully examined the stone columns and symbols, trying to find the right frequency. Each column worked like a gear, moving according to the cycle of time. Finally, all the team's efforts bore fruit. A massive energy explosion occurred in the center of the temple. The energy of the time crystal merged with the mechanisms in the temple, and a huge beam of light shot up into the sky. At that moment, the team felt once again that they were being pulled into the spiral of time. Everything began to spin rapidly. The flow of time was slipping out of their control again. The crystal energy was drawing them back into twisted time. However, this time everything was much different. When they opened their eyes, they found themselves in a completely different place. The spiral of time had hurled them into another period of history. This time, the scenery before them was an ancient city. Massive walls surrounded it, and advanced technology with towering structures reached for the sky. Yet this city seemed stuck in a time loop between the past and the future. It bore no clear traces of either a modern civilization or the remnants of a primitive one. It was as if this city was a fragment of time itself. As Dr. Myles looked around, she tried to understand what this time period really was. "Where could this be?" she whispered. The towering structures reaching toward the sky and the rich architecture indicated that this civilization was highly advanced. However, there were no signs of life here, only abandoned buildings and a timeless emptiness. In the center of the city stood the remnants of a massive structure that resembled a temple where the time crystals were housed. Dr. Myles separated from her team to solve the secrets of this civilization and moved toward the structure. The silence surrounding her gave the city a feeling of abandonment, but in this place where time and space were warped, every step was a mystery. Upon entering the temple, she encountered a vast crystal chamber. The crystals were arranged as if they were pieces of a massive machine controlling time. Dr. Myles realized that she could once again intervene in the fabric of time here. This structure might be the center where time was truly controlled. However, even the smallest mistake here could affect not only them, but all timelines. The balance of time depended on these crystals, and activating them could change the course of human history. The team regrouped inside the temple, excited to seize the opportunity to control time. But at that moment, they noticed that one of the crystals in the temple had begun to activate. Lights began to flicker again, and the waves of energy inside the temple surged rapidly. This was a powerful enough energy explosion to initiate another time loop. The spiral of time twisted once more. The crystal energy reactivated, and the team was once again pulled into the depths of history. Everything spun rapidly, and Dr. Myles and her team surrendered themselves to the flow of time. This time, they were being pulled toward an unknown future or past, not knowing where or when they would end up. Now, Dr. Elara Myles and her team were swept into the depths of the unknown to solve the greatest questions and secrets of history. As they followed the traces of a lost civilization trapped in the spiral of time, they had to confront the secrets that would shape humanity's future and past. However, each new time period they encountered drew them into even bigger questions and greater dangers. The dark labyrinth of time, confronting humanity's future. Dr. Elara Myles and her team found themselves pulled into another timeless cycle where time was uncontrollably warped, and everything began to spin in uncertainty. The past, present, and future intertwined. The team could not estimate how long they had been in these depths of time. All their consciousnesses felt as if they were trapped in a dream, but this dream was filled with both reality and dangers. Suddenly, they opened their eyes to find themselves in the midst of a very different landscape. The sky was covered with metallic gray clouds, and in the distance, enormous cities rose into the sky. However, these cities bore no traces of the past or present. The high-tech skyscrapers and complex roads symbolized humanity's most advanced civilization. Yet something was missing. There were no signs of life in the cities. Only a cold mechanism prevailed. As the team stood in the middle of this silent and abandoned city, Dr. Myles sighed deeply. Could this be humanity's future? She whispered. If this was a future time period, why was there no one here? Why was it so quiet? Dr. Malik started his technological devices to analyze the energy levels around them. The energy here is incredible, he said, but it's as if this city has automated itself completely. People are gone, or perhaps they have long since vanished. As the team explored this abandoned future, they became increasingly uneasy. The cities appeared technologically perfect, everything was in place, and robotic systems functioned flawlessly. But one thing was glaringly obvious. The people were no longer living here. After a while, the team discovered an information center that unveiled the dark secrets of this future. They connected to a massive computer network, trying to learn what humanity had transformed into in this future. The data appearing on the screens was shocking for the team. Humanity had advanced technology to such an extent that they had transcended beyond biological beings. They had completely transformed into digital entities, escaping their physical bodies. Their minds lived in an endless virtual world, but their bodies and the real world had vanished. When Dr. Myles learned this truth, deep sorrow filled her eyes. Humanity has lost what it once was. Was this what we wanted? To advance so far, this future created a kind of paradox for humanity. They had reached the pinnacle of technological advancement, but had lost themselves in the process. Now, as bodiless beings, they had transcended beyond the physical world, but in doing so, they had also lost the essence of their existence. At this point, Elara could not help but ask herself, are we also progressing down this path? Are we destroying our own future? However, the answers to these questions remained overshadowed by another danger awaiting the team. The time crystal was still active even in this future. In this time period, the crystal energy had played a crucial role in humanity's transformation. Controlling time was the key that had dragged humans into this digital prison. Dr. Myles noticed that the crystal continued to exist here as a massive energy source. She knew that unless they could bring this energy under control, they would become completely trapped in this time loop. The team regrouped and set out to activate the time crystal one last time. This crystal now held the power to change not just their fate, but perhaps the fate of all humanity. The final decision. Masters of Time, Dr. Myles and her team had reached the main temple where the crystal was located. This was perhaps the greatest challenge they had faced. The crystal had begun to emit an incredible energy capable of bending the fabric of time and space. This energy not only allowed them to travel through time, but was powerful enough to change reality itself. However, controlling this power was something that tested the limits of humanity. As the team gathered around the crystal, the same question echoed in each of their minds. How would they use this power? This crystal was not just an energy source. It was a force capable of altering time, space, and even the existence of humanity. A wrong decision could completely destroy them or irreversibly disrupt the flow of history. Dr. Myles had to make a decision at this critical moment. Using the energy of the crystal, they could escape this cycle, but they also risked completely altering the future. If they released the energy of the crystal, humanity could return to the physical world, but this world could be a completely different reality. After a brief moment of silent contemplation with her team, Dr. Malik, measuring the energy emitted by the crystal, turned to Elara and said, "We can do this, Elara, but we cannot fully predict the consequences. This could affect the entire timeline." Dr. Myles took a deep breath, change the flow of time, or return to their own era and leave everything as it was. "We must do what is best for humanity," Elara said, "but this power is very dangerous." In the end, she made her decision. They would attempt to return only to their own time using the energy of the crystal. Elara, along with her teammates, approached the crystal and began to activate the energy. As the brightness of the crystal increased, everything once again spiraled. The fabric of time bent, and space and matter became intertwined. As everything began to spin, the team found themselves once again in the realm of the unknown. The crystal had returned them to the present, to the current state of humanity. As Celestia returned to its former days, everything seemed to return to normal. However, the deep warning lingered in the minds of the crew. They must never use the power of the crystal again. Trying to be the masters of time carried great responsibility and risk. Elara and her team had learned far more than just exploration from their time travels. They understood the wisdom of Atlantis, the wild life of prehistoric ages, the digital world of the future, and the dangerous power of time crystals. Finally, Celestia returned safely to their world, but the marks left by this journey would never be forgotten by the crew. Elara sat alone in the captain's cabin of the ship, gazing silently at the stars. How far could humanity go within time? What were they willing to sacrifice to solve the secrets of time and space? These questions would always linger in the back of her mind. But one thing was certain. There was no true master of time because time belonged to no one. The energy of the crystal was once again buried deep, and perhaps that was for the best. Final chapter. Humanity in pursuit of time. Dr. Elara Myles and her team had successfully returned with Celestia, but nothing was the same. They had transcended the layers of time, seeing the paths leading to the past, future, and the possible end of humanity. The crystal energy had not only offered them a journey, but also given a warning that could shape the fate of humanity. This warning served as a mirror, forcing them to look both forward and backward. When the team returned to Celestia's safe harbor, they began preparing to write their initial mission reports. However, nothing was as simple as it had been narrated. Each encounter with the time crystals had profound effects, and putting these experiences into formal reports was merely the beginning of understanding the nature of time and humanity's relationship with it. Standing in front of the control room, Dr. Elara Myles gazed outside for a moment. The stars twinkled in a timeless and infinite manner. However, what she had realized during her time travels was how complex and uncertain the universe truly was. The crystal energy was in humanity's hands, but this also meant great responsibility. Being the master of time did not only mean controlling it, it also meant taking on the significant risks that came with it. The crew members began entering the control room one by one. Dr. Malik continued to analyze the energy data from the crystals. "Elara," he said, raising his head, "the potential of these crystals is incredible, but it also carries a danger. What will we do with this power?" Elara took a deep breath. Using the crystals could change humanity's fate. But how we choose to use this power depends on how far we want to go and how much risk we are willing to take. The potential carried by the crystal energy was filled with both hope and fear. Humanity could rewrite the fabric of time with this energy, correcting mistakes made throughout history and shaping the future. But at the same time, a wrong move with this energy could disrupt the flow of time and lead to irreversible consequences. Elara turned to her team. What did this journey teach us? We didn't just make discoveries. We saw what humanity could become and how far it could go. But one thing is clear. Playing with time does not mean living with it. Time is not our master. We are part of it. Dr. Malik, reviewing the reports on the analysis of the crystal energy, realized that they needed to develop a technology that could control it fully. However, this technology raised profound ethical questions at every step. Manipulating time was not just a scientific exploration. It brought forth the deepest questions about human existence. If they could control time, did that mean they could control their destiny? Or was destiny already predetermined? During the analyses of the core of the crystal energy, something caught their attention. A series of anomalies triggered by the time loops left some traces that had gone unnoticed since Atlantis. These traces were a wave of energy left behind as they moved from one loop to another. In fact, the crystal was a self-preserving mechanism by its very nature. When the balance of time was disrupted, the crystal would reactivate itself and attempt to restore time. Thus, the time crystal was not merely a tool. It existed as a self-regulating mechanism. This discovery surprised the team. Everything they learned about the nature of time held great significance, not only for humanity, but also for the universe itself. If the crystal energy could self-correct time, this meant that humanity could only affect the natural flow of time in a limited manner. This power did not offer unlimited freedom, but rather limited interaction. On the edge of the future, following this discovery, Dr. Elara Myles made a final decision announcement to her team. The power of the crystal is now our responsibility. But how we use this power should not just be our decision. It must be a decision for all humanity. We should store this crystal and never use it again, because trying to control time means going against its nature. The rest of the team supported this decision. Time crystals were mechanisms that existed to maintain the natural flow of time, and humanity should not disrupt this balance. While advancing technology, exploring, and learning was part of human nature, there were boundaries, and those boundaries should not be crossed. Celestia prepared to return, sealing the energy of the crystal once again. Humanity had learned much from this discovery, but they were also aware of the disasters that could arise from playing with the nature of time. This power would remain in their hands, but it would never be used. As Elara sat alone in the captain's seat of Celestia, she reflected on what she had learned during her time travels. Humanity would continue to explore not only its own history, but also the history of the universe. However, the desire to control time would always pose a danger. Elara whispered as she gazed at the stars, "We are merely a part of it. Time is the master of everything." Celestia's engines roared to life, and the ship once again vanished among the stars. But this time, they were embarking on a journey filled not only with discovery, but also with wisdom and responsibility. The time crystal would be buried deep in the depths of history and would never emerge again. In their infinite journey, as Elara and her team looked to the future with the knowledge they gained about time and humanity's destiny, all they left behind was a profound respect for the great questions that lay behind their discoveries. Time was not their master, but their companion on the journey.